And if you're willing to make all the trade-offs that you need to make, you can have it all. The biological clock and the career clock are in total conflict with each other.
Hello everyone! In this video, let's learn 5 life lessons from the most powerful woman, Indra Nooyi. Lesson number 1. Make yourself indispensable based on your competence.
The second thing is I had two daughters. My first one was about 8 or 9 years when I came to PepsiCo. My second one was 9 months old when I joined PepsiCo.
Wow.
And so, and I was in the middle of this large-scale transformation of the company from 94 to 2000, working 24/7. So basically I decided that come, like 5 o'clock, my kids are allowed to come to work and hang around. They're allowed to play, they're allowed to sleep in my office, do whatever. That's the price of having me work at PepsiCo. Because if I couldn't go home and take care of the kids, my office was going to become, the place where they were going to hang out.
What level were you? This is before you were CEO.
No, well before I was CEO. I was head of corporate strategy.
And
I was
your
reporting
bosses
to the
were okay
CEO.
with that?
Beg your pardon?
Your bosses were okay with that?
Did they have a choice? I mean, look, if you want me, that's the price of having me. All right? And it comes down to, if you establish a niche for yourself that you're competent, and make yourself indispensable based on competence, what can they do without you? If they didn't want me because they didn't want kids running around, so get somebody else. Get a guy who couldn't do the job as well. So I was okay with that. So if you wanted me, my kids were going to be around. If my kid's school called and said, oh, your daughter's got a sprained ankle, I was going to leave and go to Sacred Heart to look at that sprained ankle. That's the price of having me. And it worked.
Lesson number 2. Be prepared to power through difficulties.
Well, on a relative basis, yes, I've had it all. Okay? On a relative basis, I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful husband, 2 great kids, a very tight-knit family, and an awesome job with a great team. But to get here and to stay here, I mean, lots of trade-offs, lots of sacrifices, under the water, a lot of collateral damage. But I think somehow I've had the strength to power through all of that. Can you have it all? That's the big question in this definition. I think if you have the right support system, if you have an understanding spouse, if you want to be married, and if you're willing to make all the trade-offs that you need to make, you can have it all. But while you do all that, there will be heartache, there will be pain, there will be some collateral damage underneath the surface. You've got to live with it.
Lesson number 3. Create coping mechanisms.
We plan our lives meticulously so we can be decent parents. But if you ask our daughters, I'm not sure they will say that I've been a good mom. I'm not sure. And I try all kinds of coping mechanisms. I mean, I'll tell you a story that happened when my daughter went to Catholic school, Convent of Sacred Heart. And every Wednesday morning, they have class coffee with mothers. Class coffee with mothers for a working woman. How is it going to work? How am I going to take off 9 o'clock on Wednesday mornings to go for a class coffee? So I miss most class coffees. My daughter would come home and she'll say, list of all the mothers that were there, and you were not their mom. First few times, I would die with guilt. But I developed coping mechanisms. I called the school and I said, give me a list of mothers who were not there. So when she came home in the evening, she'd say, you were not there, you were not there. I said, Mrs. Rag wasn't there, Mrs. So-and-so wasn't there. So I'm not the only bad mother. You have to cope because you die with guilt. You just die with guilt. My observation, David, is that the biological clock and the career clock are in total conflict with each other. Total, complete conflict. When you have to have kids, you have to build your career.
Lesson number 4. Be thankful for your upbringing.
About 2 years ago, I started to write to parents of my direct reports. Okay? And it happened because, I am Indian origin and I was in India, and my father passed away many, many years ago. My mom lives in India. And I went home to spend time with her, and every 2 minutes some stranger would show up home, and my mom would say, this is the neighbor's 4th cousin, come and say hello. And I say, Mom, I'm here on vacation, I want to rest. And she'll say, you may come here for 4 days and leave, but I have to live with these people, so you better show up and be on display. So I was dressed, like I was going to a party morning to evening just to say hello to people. But the irony of it was they would come in, they'd say, oh, so this is the daughter. And then they'd blow past me in 30 seconds and go to my mom and say, you are so wonderful, you gave birth to this child, it's you, that's great. So my mom would just sit there taking all these compliments. At that point, and she's a very humble woman, but she loved this. So at that time, it occurred to me that every person is either a product or a victim of their upbringing. So I came back and I said, look, at that time, between my direct reports and one more level, I had 27 of them. I said, all of these people who run PepsiCo are in fact the products of their upbringing. So I owe their parents a thank you. So I wrote to every one of the parents a standard paragraph explaining why I was writing to them. And then I wrote very tailored 2 or 3 paragraphs about their son or daughter, thanking them for the gift of their child to PepsiCo. The emotion that is evoked has been unbelievable. And I write to them now once a year since then. But the emotion that's evoked is unbelievable. They'll write me notes. Dear Indra, I just went to the store, I saw this. Maybe you should talk to my son to fix this. It is this private dialogue I have with the parents. They write to me about everything. I saw you on Squawk Box. I loved what you said. Bless you. I went to church and said a prayer for you. You know what? It's a private dialogue I have with parents, and I think it increases the commitment of the executives to PepsiCo because it's brought the whole family in. We always wrote to spouses, that's a PepsiCo tradition, but now we brought the parents in. And I say this to you because, remember I talked to you about ruling the company with heart, head and hands? This is the heart part.
Lesson number 5. Communicate with confidence.
It's very important that when you make a point in a meeting, make it with confidence. Okay? And I tell you the one big lesson I've learned watching the men, very interesting, think of it as a study in sociology. When you watch the men, even when they don't have much to say, whatever they say it with great confidence. I mean it in a positive way, I'm not saying it in a negative way. Women will make a great point, but they'll say it softer and almost sort of shrink into the background. Sit up, sit at the table, and speak with confidence. That's half the battle won. And if you take these cues and really view yourself from the inside as an equal, the whole discussion gets easier. So I think there's one thing we can do for each other is if you find somebody becoming a shrinking violet, call them on it and say, come on, you've got better points than anybody else. Participate.